Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Every Horror Film Where Horror is Forever. And first off, Happy New Year. Hope you had a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Great New Year, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, I don't know, whatever you celebrate. I hope that you brought it in the best way
We're gonna need
possible.
all of them.
You're going to need all of them, okay? You don't just need one holiday to get done with an exorcism. You're going to need multiple, okay? And that's
Yes,
what
you
we're
are.
here to discuss. That's right. Today we are discussing The Exorcist Believer, which I own on Blu-ray. One of the last Blu-rays that I will ever buy physically from a store because Best Buy, they're done. They're done selling physical media.
Hurts my heart. It hurts my heart.
It does. It does suck. But this movie, this has been a long time coming. I remember when this was announced a few years back that Blumhouse was going to do a three-part trilogy about The Exorcist, and I was like, whoa. First off, I my hopes were my expectations were very low. But I was willing to give it a shot. After the Blumhouse trilogy with Halloween that we had, there were a lot of things that we liked, a lot of things that we didn't like. So, where could this go? David Gordon Green directing this first film. A lot of people, a lot of Halloween fans not liking his direction and the things he did. So, what would he do with this? Jeff, when you first heard about this coming out, what were your initial thoughts?
I mean, I think my initial thoughts are the same as anybody else's. I mean, we said it. If you haven't watched our Exorcist review, the original Exorcist review, go watch that. Of course, you see our praises for that. But I think I said it in that review that when it comes to a sequel for what I think is the greatest horror movie of all time, if you capture the voice of God on camera, you'd still only be second best. So, with that in mind, did I think that David Gordon Green and Blumhouse were going to figuratively catch the voice of God on camera? No. I mean, no movie has less of a need for a sequel than The Exorcist. It is
True.
a one and done. How many times do we have to be through this? I know horror movies from the 70s and 80s get butchered and butchered with all these sequels. I know that's the thing. And I know that we live in the requel, reboot timeline, whatever era right now. That's got to die too, because The Exorcist never needed to come back. I get that it's 50 years later. Half a century has gone by, and every attempt has gone down the drain to recapture the magic or the evil that came from that original movie. So, immediately, with that being said, it doesn't matter if the sequel came out last year or 10 years from now. It doesn't need to happen. Okay. The expectations, the bar is so high, you'll never hit the mark. And when I see the name attached to it, the Blumhouse David Gordon Green, immediately red flags flying out the like out of thin air. And not because of David Gordon Green, not because of what David Gordon Green did with Halloween, but because it just reeks of this cynical, like evil, creepy corporate vibe of just mutilating this franchise that should have been a franchise, this IP, this staple, just bringing it back as a lifeless Frankenstein of a franchise for no reason other than to just make money. And you could have gotten any director to do this, but you got the guy who got lucky with Halloween. One size does not fit all when it comes to horror. And Halloween and The Exorcist are almost, not quite, but almost opposite ends of the horror spectrum. Okay. What worked in Halloween is not going to work here. Did Blumhouse and Universal just say, well, if it doesn't work, we'll just blame David Gordon Green? Yeah, probably. There was probably a bit of that. But man, this thing was doomed to fail from the start. Before I even saw the first trailer, I said, there's no way.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because when the trailer dropped this summer, I remember I watched it, and at that point, I kind of knew. I said, man, this does not look good at all. And I remember I sent it to you. You kind of had the same thought process. I said, even though this does not seem like it's going to be that good, which first off, no one ever thought it was going to live up to
No.
be a sequel to the original. It's impossible. But I mean, like you said, they've been trying forever to do that, and people have been trying to rip The Exorcist off for years, and very few movies have even sniffed trying to be that good.
Yeah.
But I watched the trailer. I was very disappointed. It just looked very generic. But is with any movie, I said, okay, I'm going to give it a fair try and just watch it for what it is. So we were actually going to go see this together in theaters. I remember I bought tickets. The next day we were supposed to see it. I ended up getting sick, so we did not go see it in theaters.
Exorcist curse.
The Exorcist curse, exactly. It lives on. So you watched it on streaming when it came out. When it came out on Blu-ray and 4K, I went and bought it. I said I'm going to watch it. And would you like me to start with my first opinion, I guess?
You bought the Blu-ray, so you have the honors.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, this movie is boring. That's it. That's all I have to say, really. I'm not I didn't go into this movie with high expectations, which is why I'm not upset. I didn't really expect much, but I said, hey, I'm gonna give it a fair try. There are certain aspects of this movie that I like, but to me, in the year 2024, when this came out in 2023, if you're making a sequel to The Exorcist, one of your pillars of horror that you always say is you've got to push the envelope. You are trying to make a sequel to arguably the greatest horror film of all time, the scariest film of all time, one of the greatest movies in general of all time.
Mhm.
And this movie did nothing to push the envelope or make me say, wow, I just watched an Exorcist movie. It just didn't do anything for me. It just was very tame, boring. We'll get into the legacy sequel characters stuff here in a little bit. But I watched this on the couch. I kept waiting for something to happen, and it just never did. The movie was over, and I said, "Well, hey, I tried."
We tried. We owe it to The Exorcist. Being such big fans of the original, we owed it to ourselves and to Blatty, to Friedkin. We owe it to them to try, right? And even if you go into it with no expectations or low expectations, I went into Halloween 2018 with no expectations. I didn't know what to. I was coming off Rob Zombie. What are we gonna get? And I was impressed. I was. I didn't have the same, I didn't have the same positive outlook with this one, even with no expectations, because it was doomed from the start, but also it's so boring is the perfect word for it. You nailed it. But it's just so it's such a quick digestible thing that we get every week. It's so just movie of the week to me. It's not a poorly shot film. It's not a bad looking motion picture. David Gordon Green is not a bad director. I'm tired of the jokes. I'm tired of the really just hack premise of a joke that David Gordon Green's out to kill your next favorite horror franchise, or David Gordon Green needs to be kept far away from horror movies. Stop, man. Stop using David Gordon Green as the fall guy. This was Universal's fault. This is Blumhouse's fault. This was the writer's fault, and also this was just Hollywood's fault, because this movie shouldn't have been made. And we're not even going to talk about the fact that the writer of Halloween Kills was the one that wrote this movie. I'm going to skim over that, okay? Stop blaming David Gordon Green for this, because who you really need to blame for this is the executives that you don't know the names of. They're the ones that are greenlighting these. They're the ones that are saying, oh, keep throwing money at the Chris McNeil actress. Keep throwing money at her. Get her back, because if we don't have her, we got nothing. We want requels. We want legacy characters. Shut up with the legacy characters, by the way. It worked in Star Wars. It didn't work in Jurassic World. It worked with Halloween because Laurie Strode, the character, had unfinished business in this story. Okay. Neve Campbell doesn't have unfinished business with Ghostface. Chris McNeil doesn't have unfinished business with Pazuzu. Okay, so stop with this. Just stop. It's gross. It's creepy. It's weird. I'm tired of it. You're running out of actors. You're running out of franchises to milk. It's just so temporary, and it's so not going to be here 10 years from now. And I think part of Universal knows this, and they're letting David Gordon Green take the fall for this. They greenlight a trilogy of these things? No, man. Why would you fork over? They've spent, I think, 400 to 500 million dollars just acquiring the franchise rights to the Exorcist name just to do this. For what, man? You can't capture lightning in a bottle twice. You got lucky with Halloween. Try it with Friday the 13th. Try it with Nightmare on Elm Street. David Gordon Green, he's a fine director. Nothing to write home about. But I don't know. You get my sentiment, man. I'm mad at Universal more than anything.
No, I agree, and I see what you're saying. It's just one of those things. First off, paying 400 million for the rights to The Exorcist. I mean, good lord. There's, I, I, you know, there's really only you're essentially paying the rights for just that one film. Yes, there have been plenty of sequels. Part three, I think, is actually a very good movie. We'll talk about that at some point. But for the most part, you were paying for the rights to the original film. You paid $400 million for it, and this is what you come out with. It's just like, man, I mean, maybe before you greenlit a trilogy, maybe let's just say, hey, we know we want to do a trilogy possibly, but let's just give it our all on this first film because you never know what you're going to get. And whenever we talk about this movie, after the ending that we got and the characters that we have, I don't really know where they're gonna go. I mean, I think I know where they're gonna go, but is that worth a trilogy? Not really, in my opinion. It's just very, hey, let's throw money at this name, let's get it, and let's just see if we can recoup our money. Just I don't know, man. I doubt they're gonna recoup $400 million with the stuff that we got.
No, absolutely not. Now, I think that the budget of this one originally was like 30 to 50 million, and I think the box office made that back. I think they made it, and despite the critical reception, they're they're going to go ahead with these contracted sequels. But what came to mind, I watched with my fiance, and immediately she had the same reaction. The conversation that comes to mind isn't even a conversation about horror. It's a conversation about films as an art form. Is our movies, and you can answer this in your head, are movies art or are movies products? If one is art, then they all have to be art, right? If one is a product, then they all have to be a product, right? Or do you teeter the fence? What movies are art? What movies are products? And I think it all comes down to motivation. This is the definition of a movie as a product. This is it's not timeless. It's gonna age very rapidly. I mean, you can watch an 80s movie. You can watch Nightmare on Elm Street 2 and be like, this is such a quintessential 80s movie. You know what I mean? You
Mhm.
can watch Halloween 6 and be like, this is such a 90s movie. You can watch Resurrection and be like, this is such a 2000s movie. If you watch The Exorcist Believer, you're gonna it you 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 50 years from now, no one's even gonna watch this. But when they do, they're gonna be like, this looks like anything that came out between 2015 and 2027. This is just yet another product with X, Y, and Z names attached to it. It's so dead. It's like it's like the episode of SpongeBob where they bite into a Krabby Patty and it's just gray goo. Like that's just all it is to me, honestly. It's not a poorly made film, but it's just such a hack product, man. It's so gross. So I don't know, man. Let's get into it. Where do we even start with this?
All right, so let's get started here. This movie starts off in Haiti. And if you see in the original, God, I hope you have. Um, You know, you've seen the original. It starts off very similar to that. They're in a different country somewhere. There's these shots of like the dogs fighting, which we have those in the original film. So it's kind of a little callback there. And we've got this photographer named Victor, and he's with his wife, and they're, you know, on a trip on their honeymoon, and she's pregnant. I mean, she's getting ready to give birth probably pretty soon. And you know, they're there having a good time, enjoying themselves, and an earthquake happens. She's in a hotel room. He's on somewhere else across the town, and the building collapses, and basically she's injured. And the doctors at this point give him a choice. They say, "Hey, you're either going to have to pick one. Either your child is going to survive, or you're going to have to pick your wife to survive. We can't do both. They're both severely injured. We can only pick one," and which is a really gripping moment. And so 13 years later, we show that he is out with his daughter at their home. Um, I can't remember where it was. Yeah, I think it was in Georgia, actually. They said it was in Georgia. And, you know, they're going to have this good relationship. So that's where we get started. We found out that the dad picked the girl, and 13 years later, they're moving on and just, you know, living a normal life to get started.
Yeah. Now, the conversation of you can either save the mother or you can save the child, but we can't save both. First of all, I'm not discrediting that situation. Obviously, it happens, but I want to know how much that situation occurs in real life versus how much it happens in the pages of a screenplay, because I feel like that's so used in movies today, mostly at dramas and rom coms. But to have it start out like this, okay, what did he choose? We don't know. Well, it looks like the daughter's alive. Looks like he chose her. It comes back in a acceptable way towards the end, which we'll talk
Sure.
about. But yeah, that choice is lays the groundwork for okay, we're gonna follow the dad and the kid. Open it up in the kitchen. The dad has a good relationship with the daughter, albeit a little bit overprotective. Um, Sends her off to school. She tries to sneak away with deceased mom's scarf, and the dad's like, leave that back here. And he finally lets out the reins a little bit so she can go hang out with her friends after school. After school, she hangs out with her friend. What's the other kid?
Catherine.
Catherine. She goes to hang out with the other kid, Catherine, but come to find out, she had no intention of staying after at Catherine's and doing homework at all. She went off into the woods to do a seance to talk to her deceased mom. Um, okay, you know, so we're moving right along. We get some good sequences of the dad and Catherine's family trying to track them down. Decent stuff, you know, cop drama quality, trying to find their missing kids. It's tense. It's very gripping. You definitely feel the passage of time. 3 days go by, and you feel the passage of the 3 days for sure.
Before we get too far, I want to ask you a question.
Mm.
Obviously, it's revealed, we know in this film, that two girls are possessed. What do you think about that concept? Is that something we're just like, oh, instead of doing one, we'll do two? Or you think is it a good dynamic to go for? Or you think it's just kind of stupid? Or I mean, what were your thoughts on that?
I think it's a cool dynamic to go for if you do it right, but they didn't do it right in this movie. There's and I'm gonna use suspension of belief here and say, okay, I'm gonna look past the original mythology that Blatty introduced. One demon possessing two girls the same way, different ways. How did they? I can see how they have the same personality, the same voice coming out of two mouths. All right, I get it. But what's the goal here? I mean, what is the demon's goal here? Because a big part of the original Exorcist is what was Pazuzu's goal? You know, Pazuzu's goal, very clear cut. He was trying to convert Father Karras away from God. Boom, cut and dry, as good as it gets. What was the demon's goal in this movie?
That I am not sure of, and I don't even know. Which I've tried to do a little bit of research on the film after this because it's going to be a trilogy. So I'm sure there's some lore that will be built up, but I don't think it's ever specifically confirmed if this demon was Pazuzu.
We'll get to
Uh,
that. I know exactly who it is, and we'll get
okay,
to it. But
okay,
but yeah, possessing two girls. Uh, okay, not really pushing the boundary, but I don't. I can't recall an exorcism movie where more than one person was possessed. So okay,
sure.
we'll go along for it. It's all good. But but yeah, they both get possessed, and they both start showing signs after a couple days. Well, a couple days go by, and they get found after 3 days. They bring him to the hospital. They do the intensive exams. What's up?
I mean to cut you off
Cut me off, dude.
before we get that far. So we get this dynamic where Victor pretty much is the main. I would say he's pretty much the main character in this film, and I want to talk about him as a character, and then the parents as characters for Catherine.
Mm-hmm.
So really, the main character is Victor and his daughter. He seems like a good guy. He's played by Leslie Odom Jr. I haven't seen him in anything else. I know a lot of people have big praises for him. So, I think in this film he did a solid job. I don't think it was so much more an acting problem as it was probably a writing problem.
Mm-hmm.
I think he does fine in this film. He really comes off as a caring dad. Obviously throughout the film we kind of figure out he's not a believer. Get it? You see what I said, believer?
I thought you said the thing.
I said the thing. And so we figure out he's not a believer. He used to be a believer. He's kind of, he doesn't believe in, a higher power. We switch to Catherine's family, which are, two Southern, Baptist people, very religious. They go to church. So they're very, they believe in Christ. So they really believe that kind of stuff. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic whenever because the parents get together and they say they were both missing. And then I think the mom says, or the dad, I can't remember, says, we didn't even know they were friends.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, they went off together in the woods and, you're teaming up with these other parents like, hey, my kid? Like, no, I don't know your kid, but our kids are off in the woods together. So it's kind of like they were, how you have friends at school that you don't tell your parents about just because they're
Yeah.
friends at school. Who matters?
Right.
Doesn't matter. So we get this dynamic and they're at the police station and the dad's kind of a hothead and he's like, you don't know my daughter. And then Victor's dad's like, my daughter wouldn't do this. Maybe is there something going on at home that you don't know about? And it gets kind of tense. And, the parents are kind of feuding with each other, pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. And immediately you start to get whiffs of the theme or idea of a theme here being that people from different religious backgrounds just can't get along until uh, a singular goal brings them all together in the name of, you know, it, whatever, I get it. And I think the dynamic of Catherine's parents being the Southern Baptist or whatever they are wasn't really explicitly stated. I think the dynamic of them and the dynamic of Angela's father being more of an atheist, I think that works decently. That's the makings of an okay movie, different religious backgrounds. I for one would like to see more atheist characters in TV without the movie being about their lack of belief. I'd like to see more of that. Um, but the problem with that is the movie is shot and written in a way that you're automatically taking the side of Angela and her dad. You automatically have this disdain for Catherine and her family. Like, this movie ain't about you. Shut up with your beliefs. It's very weird and it's not well balanced. It's definitely more about Angela's father, but yeah, Catherine's parents, I think, were decently done as archetypes.
Sure.
And the contrast there, it's all the pieces are there. Just make something out of it. But it's that's something that comes up a lot in this movie is Angela's dad being an atheist because of losing his wife and losing faith and all that. And that's the closest we get to a character arc, I think, with him.
Pretty much. So they're button heads. The girls are gone, and then they're all kind of freaking out. Everyone's upset, and time span goes on, and there's a scene where this random guy is at a barn somewhere with his dad or his grandpa, and he's like hey, go look for this. And then he runs in the barn to look for something and he finds the two girls in the barn. So then they go to the hospital. The parents meet up with them. They're like, oh my goodness, thank God you're safe. Excuse me. And they, this is what I hate about trailers because in the trailer, I remember specifically that Victor said, honey, you've been gone for 3 days. So when they get back to the hospital, they're talking to the detective and whatever, and the detective's like, I need you to hear what your daughter's saying right now. He's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, how long have you been gone? And she's thinking like, oh, a couple hours. And then he's like, you've been gone 3 days. I'm like, there's so many moments in this movie. They're not necessarily good moments, but the trailer just flat out displays them. This line would have been a lot better if you'd have left that up to mystery and just not specified in the trailer how long they were going to be gone. And once
Oh yeah.
I was ready for that line to be delivered, and there it was, and I'm just kind of like, okay,
Exactly. You're working with known information at this point. Nothing's being revealed about this. Nothing is shocking about it. It takes the punch out of everything. A lot of movies nowadays suffer from the condition of, if you watch the trailer, you basically watch the movie. This is no exception. It took the punch out of it for sure. So the 3 days thing, we're going to skip ahead a little bit. Let's talk about it right now. The 3 days thing, when they start to dissect about when they get to the point past all the signs, and Catherine's parents start to talk about how 3 days is how long it took Jesus to go to hell and get resurrected. What'd you think about that? Did you pick up on that before Catherine's mother explained it? Did it have any kind of an impact with you? Did it add any flavor to it?
it didn't until she brought it up. I missed something there about the 3 days. I'm not sure. Did it? Is there something I'm missing here? Or
There's nothing.
okay,
There's inklings of something.
okay,
Whereas if this was written by Blatty, or it was a book, maybe it would have been a little more carefully dropped in there. But the 3 days thing, I feel like was supposed to be like this. Oh yeah, like this brain food moment, and it just wasn't. It didn't have any kind of impact. It didn't have any kind of lore implications. The movie seemed to make the 3 days seem like a big deal, where there
yeah.
was no real big deal for you. You get possessed in a night, you can get possessed in a week. I don't care. The 3 days thing, I don't know. It felt like they were trying to do something, or at least tell you that they were doing something, but they didn't do anything with it. But I
I
digress.
I think honestly, my favorite part of this whole movie, which this is just great, is so obviously when the girls get back, they're acting kind of strange. They're not acting like crazy possessed, but they're kind of out of it. But everybody's
Mhm.
just playing it off like, oh, they've been gone, they haven't been eating all this, like they're just kind of going through it. And I love the part where they're talking about 3 days, and then the mom is just like, you know what? They went into the woods. They brought back a demon with them. Boom. That should have been the end of the movie right there. She got it off the jump and was like, they're possessed. I know it. Get the priest in here. We're gonna get them exercised. We don't need to go through all the tests, all the stuff. We don't need that. Get them in here. Let's get this thing
Yeah.
wrapped up.
Remember that part of the old movie where they went through all the tests to weed out every possible explanation before getting to exorcism? Let's just cut all that bullshit out right now. We're going straight to demons. It was demons.
Don't need it. Possession. We're doing it now. I don't know. I just thought that was so funny how she just it's like,
It,
yo, they're possessed.
it is. And I don't know if that's a note on fanatical Baptist beliefs or something. I don't know. There's no nuance in this movie. It's just so quick to get to something else. So, but I digress. The kids get back home. They're trying to live normal lives a little bit. Angela's clearly off. She's laying in bed. She's like, I was trying to talk to mom. I was trying to see if Catherine could hear mom. Um, and the dad's talking to her, consoling her. We get a jump scare in this movie, a very subdued one. I'm gonna say that this scare where Angela kind of looks off to the side while she's talking to her dad, and this very blurred demon version of herself is standing off in the corner of the room over his shoulder.
Mhm.
I like that one. I'm
Yeah.
not crazy about it, but I think that's the highlight of the movie for me. That resonated with me. I think the lack of impactful, the lack of sound in that moment was really good.
Yep.
That would probably be a plus for me on this report card for this movie. I like that scare. It's not the Insidious scare, but it got me a little bit. I was okay with that one.
Yeah, I agree. That was a good little moment. I couldn't remember if it was either Insidious or Conjuring series where that came from.
They're all the same.
Yeah, but I I like that. That was a good scene, and and honestly and unfortunately, it's one of the very few scary scenes in this movie.
Yep.
Because there's not much that is scary. That was a nice little scene. I would like to see them build upon that more. Um, so yeah, the daughter's back, and I gotta ask you about this one scene where they've been back for a day or two, and she's acting kind of strange, and she pees the bed and all this stuff or whatever, and then we get to this one scene where he's brushing his teeth and the lights are flickering on and off, and then she leaves her bed and comes up to him, and she's just looking at him. He's like, "Go back to bed, like go lay down." He puts her to bed, and then she comes back, and the lights are flickering, and then she's just teleports there, and then she's like, "Did you say something?" Like, I felt like they were trying to make that scene like so intense and scary and just important, but it just was not. Nothing happened. It just was it was a scene just for the sake of having a scene, and it just built up to nothing.
That's what it was. It was a build-up scene. It was the definition of a build-up, and nothing was being built up to. That was the scare and the build-up at the same time. I mean, this movie, the screenplay kind of reeks of, they say show don't tell. I feel like this screenplay tells more than it shows. It's telling you that it's smart. It's telling you that it's nuanced. It's telling you that there are pieces out there that you need to put together rather than just showing you and letting you chew on it in a 2-hour review like we did. It's it's there was nothing deeper with the bathroom light scene. I mean, yeah, you get him going off to flip the breakers and getting electrocuted through the breakers, but that's like horror movie 101 right there. I mean,
Yeah.
you're not doing anything special with that. I mean, maybe it's a sin of being 50 years in the future, but dude, what were you trying to do? And kudos to the Angela actor. We already know how we feel about child actors, man. It's not working for me. It's
I
just not.
Yeah, I mean they weren't the worst. They weren't young enough where it was like cringe. They're kind of at the age where they can act. I mean and I think for actually the possessions where they're like full on possessed, they really didn't do a bad job. I don't really blame them.
Yeah, it's more the
It,
writing.
correct. And I was going to ask you about another scene we kind of skimmed over. When the girls are missing, Victor has this friend, like this guy with the glasses, and he just shows up at his house while he's gone. He's like, "Hey,
He
I
just
brought,"
breaks and enters. He's like, "Hope you don't mind. I'm just doing voodoo in your kid's bedroom." It's like, what the
and he's got
fuck?
these people over here doing like voodoo. It's just like, what is going on? Like, no one does that in real life. Like, if your daughter went missing in the woods, the last thing I'm going to do is just show up to your house and just say, "Hey, man, I hope you don't mind. I brought these people over here to just like do a seance in your house." Like, no one does that. It just was
We're just gonna
stupid.
go do some. We're gonna go do some chants down the hallway. You can join us if you want, but dude, that was weird, man.
And again, they tried to build up a scary scene where no one, like, he sees his front door open, he walks in, he's like, "What's going on?" And I thought it was going to be the girl, and I'm like, "Oh, like this might
Yeah,
be good." And no, it's just his friend bringing random people into his house. He's like, "Sorry." It's just stupid.
the whole purpose of that, I think, was just to introduce the new players, the new faction of. I don't want to say voodoo. I don't know the appropriate term for whatever religion or belief that Miss Beehive or whatever she was practicing. I don't know the name for it, but her angle, her religious angle, that whole scene, I think, was just to introduce them as players to this game. um, and that's it. For real. I mean, you had that. You had the neighbor lady who was a Karen at the beginning complaining about trash cans, who becomes like what? Some kind of tragic hero at the end.
She plays a big part of the movie later on. Yeah.
It's like about some trash cans, you know. I second time watching it, I was like, that's the trash can lady? Are you serious? But
I know. I thought that was gonna go somewhere. She came. I was like, why is she harping on these trash cans? Nothing happens. It's just she just is like, hey, pick up your trash cans by the end of the road.
it's I think they were just trying to, I think the conflict between the atheist dad and the Catholic trash can Karen, and then the Baptist family, and then the voodoo housebreakers. Like, I think the conflict and the butting heads between all those parties was intentional, and it was their idea of inviting this conflict where everyone comes together and unites at the end against this common enemy. But it just didn't work. I don't know why. I don't know if the movie needed an extra 20 minutes in the oven or what,
Yeah.
but it just didn't, it fell flat, and all this conflict, it was just jarring and weird to me. It didn't work as like a first act, second act, third act. So whatever, man. We got to get to the end of the movie someday, right?
Exactly. So the girls are acting weird. Everyone's struggling. They're doing weird stuff. Let's get to the part where the person shows up that has been advertised. Chris McNeil. That's right. So Victor is, he's talking to the trash can lady, and she's like, "Listen, I know you're not a believer, but this book right here might help you." He's like, I don't care. Well, eventually he ends up reading it. Turns out it's a book that Chris McNeil wrote on her experience 50 years ago with her daughter and what happened. Um, and he decides to kind of contact her. Hey, maybe this lady can help you. And he shows up at her house. She's like in her 90s now. And by the way, what you mentioned earlier, they threw an insane amount of money at Ellen Burstyn to come back and do this movie, and she declined it like 4 times until eventually they gave her enough, and she was like, you know what, let's like open up a scholarship fund for actors or something, and she donated all the money she made to that. So she totally played them. And if you're Universal and Blumhouse, she's like stupid for doing that. You threw money at this lady. She takes the money you gave her, and she just, which good for her, but on them, they look stupid for doing that.
And they look stupid and they look desperate. I mean,
Yes.
it looks like they have so little faith in a script that they can't do it without Chris McNeil, who wasn't even a pivotal player in the original movie. You just needed to cash in on the requel title. You just needed to cash in on the legacy character, bringing him back trend. So desperate and so corporate and so just gross and just distasteful, man. She wasn't interested. The fans weren't interested. The
No.
story didn't need her, but you just had to cash in on that trend because Harrison Ford came back as Han Solo, and the rest was history. That's it. That's the only reason you did that. And it's so gross. Kudos to Ellen Burstyn for telling that. Thank you for sharing that with us. I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad you spoke up and didn't like blow smoke. You were real. You were real with it, Ellen Burstyn. So kudos to you for telling us that story. But Universal, get your shit together, because that was embarrassing.
That is embarrassing. And, at this point in the movie, this is where it really starts to go downhill. I wasn't like I was having a great time to begin with. You having an allergic reaction over there, sir?
Dude, I got something in my eye. It's crazy.
So at this point, this is where it really gets off the rails and turns in from a so-so movie to just kind of a bad movie. And the reason they do this is because they go the legacy character route. Again, in Halloween, the trilogy they just did, in 2018, it worked. Halloween Kills, not so much. Halloween Ends, some people say yes, some people say no. But a character like Laurie Strode, yes, something like that is doable. They did it in the recent Texas Chainsaw movie on Netflix.
Yes, we got to talk about that.
It was god awful. It was the most it was the most unnecessary legacy character, because first off, it's not even the original actress. The original actress is no longer even alive. So they pick a random lady, and she was the worst. And they throw in the movie, and it just is terrible. There was no need for that. And what do they do in this movie? It's not as bad, but man, you just can see that the whole time they're like, hey, we have Ellen Bernstein. She was in the movie 50 years ago.
Dude, it's just, I'm so glad you brought that up because that was my example. Netflix's Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022. Egregious. What? That was a hate crime against legacy actors for real.
Dude.
Wasn't even the same lady. No one was asking for that. Nobody needed that. It didn't need to happen. You were cashing in. You were cashing in on this trend, and you didn't even have chips to cash in on. You made them up. It was ridiculous. That was so embarrassing. And in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, she was like, she like did the laugh or whatever that the lady did at the end of Texas Chainsaw, the original, and she was like, "Ha, you remember me now?" It's like, no, you're a different lady.
No.
And they tried to do this copycat of Laurie Strode. That was the worst thing I'd ever seen as far as legacy actors until now. Ellen Burstyn didn't even come back in a Laurie Strode capacity. She was an actor in the original one. And now she's like an author that's like connecting religions through exorcism. What? Stop, man. Like, there is no unfinished beef with Pazuzu. There is, bring Reagan back if you want, and the story's going to be about Reagan. Okay. Chris McNeil. Come on, man. I thought Texas Chainsaw. I expected that from Netflix. I didn't expect that from Universal.
I agree, because in the at the ending of the first film, she's an actress, and it kind of, she's like, hey, I mean, like, just like anybody would if they went through that experience, they want to put it behind them and just move on. Hey, maybe somewhere down the road when you get older, maybe you write a book about it, you tell your story, but to be like this expert on religions, like, what? No, no. I'm sorry.
You're not a member of the church. You, as you clearly stated, you weren't even in the room. So, shh. And I mean this with all due respect. Shut your mouth, for real. Like, it's Universal's fault. I'm not mad at Ellen Burstyn. I'm not mad at the character. It's Universal, man. It's just a cash cow, and it's ridiculous, and it didn't need to happen. Now
that I want to bring up one more point with that.
Mm-hmm.
I've watched a lot of reviews and looked into stuff about this movie, and this one line that I'm getting ready to talk about.
Oh, I know what you're trying to talk about. I can't wait.
Pissed a lot of people off. And I didn't catch it at first, but once I went back and I was like, damn, she actually said that. Victor asks, hey, why weren't you in the room when the exorcism happened? Which, first off, I don't know about you, but if my child's getting exorcised, I'm probably not going to be in there either. I'm going to let the priest take care of it. I'm going to be waiting on the other side. Hey, you guys do you. I will be here if you need me.
Yeah.
And she lets out that line. He said, well, why weren't you in the room? She's like, I think it was because of their damn patriarchy. I'm like, you're trying to make me not like Chris McNeil as a character. Okay. No one would ever say that in real life after two people sacrificed their lives and died saving your daughter doing an exorcism. And you think it's because of the patriarchy?
Dude.
What? That was so bad. That was
easily one of the most disrespectful half-assed jokes I've ever seen in a screenplay to come out of the last decade. Holy shit. Like, such a today joke, such a 2020s patriarchy. Shut the fuck up. All right, just for real, man. It doesn't work in this movie, especially when you realize what you said. She's not equipped for this. She's not a father. She's not a priest. She's not a member of. She doesn't even know what an exorcism was. Why would she be in the room? Every non-religious figure who entered that room in the original movie died, including Father Karras and Father Maxey. So why would she be in there? Oh, are you mad that you weren't? Are you mad that you didn't go in the room and die? What the fuck?
Yeah.
Are,
Uh,
if I remember correctly, you were chilling downstairs. If I remember correctly, you weren't beating down the door to get in there. Stupid throwaway line. Not funny. And I think that they just did that to get like this Twitter GIF meme reaction photo
yeah.
to hopefully make some kind of a meme about it. But all you did was be so disrespectful to the source material. Oh,
Oh yeah.
I
That's
would
bad.
love to pick William Blatty's mind on that one because that is just the worst example of modern humor and modern, I don't even want to call it ideology because it's just so not,
Yeah.
just modern bullshit being flung in where it has no right and no place. Ugh, what a gross line, man.
And they paid $400 million for that
They
line.
paid $400 million so Helen Burstyn could lie. Oh my
Uh,
god.
yeah, and you know what? I bet like I wonder if she ever kind of gave us some backlash about that. She's like, oh, "You really want me to say this? Like this
I
kind of
don't think she cared. She was there. She literally said she was there for the money.
pretty much." So
Ugh.
so at this point, they they agree to help the kids, and why Angela had her freak out at the house. Quickly we'll talk about Catherine's where they're at the church again. The trailer, the body and the blood, the body and the blood. They ruin this moment, which it wasn't even that cool of a moment anyway. But they ruin the
One of
scene
the only action moments of the movie.
in the trailer. And as soon as we cut to like they're in church, I'm like, oh, here it comes. I'm just sitting there waiting for it to happen, and it happens, and it just is boring. It's like that's the best you can do. Like that, you paid $400 million for the rights to the Exorcist. The best you can do is the
Um,
body and the blood.
we're not letting you live that down. I mean, so Catherine's whole ordeal, because Angela had already started showing signs of weirdness. Catherine's ideal was she was in her church and she was like flailing all around, not paying attention to the sermon, yada yada. They even do this really quick, almost blink and you'll miss it moment where she reaches under her dress and starts doing you know what.
Yeah,
Hey, this movie is not edgy. Okay. The original Exorcist movie was very edgy, especially for its time. Still holds up today. A little edgy, makes you a little uncomfortable. That, shut up. Just shut up. I know what you were doing, and it just doesn't work because you don't have the balls to do it. Now, don't misconstrue what I'm saying here, but if you're going to push the boundaries, push the boundaries.
yeah.
Don't pretend to push the boundaries just because your predecessor did it. So, no, I think that taboo, edgy moment where she reaches under her dress was not earned, did not do anything to pay off, made no sense, and just did not. It packed the opposite of a punch that it did in the 70s. So, no, man. Like, again, this movie is telling and not showing. It's not. It's telling us that it's doing these crazy things and it's putting out these pieces to link together, and it's smart, like the book. It's not. But lo and behold, she comes down the aisle, the body in the blood, 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 the body in the butt. Like, dude,
Evil dies tonight.
evil dies tonight. Evil dies tonight. Evil. Ugh, shut up, man. It was even. I think it was the tagline on the movie poster too. The body in the blood. What?
I don't know, man.
What?
I'm
Yeah.
surprised that we didn't get uh 50 years ago.
50 years ago. Dude, I'm so surprised Chris McNeil wasn't like, I was there 50 years ago.
I can't. Honestly, I'm kind of mad they didn't do that because
Point,
at this point, they should have just made a meme of Halloween Kills and
dude,
just been like,
if
50 years ago.
and you know what's crazy? If you had the self-awareness to rip on yourself in the script of this, like you were the Halloween Kills writer, if you had the self-awareness to be like, here's a little tongue-in-cheek joke, 50 years ago. If you did that, you'd earn some points with me.
Exactly.
Movie had
Exactly.
no balls. Movie had no balls.
None at all. So, she's trying to help these kids. She's like, all right, let's go find them. They go to the mental health facility where Angela's at, and she's acting weird. And you can see for a quick scene, she's carving Reagan's name into the black area where with her finger. She's carving it in there. Maybe that means something later. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it is a demon that is familiar with what happened 50 years ago. Who knows? So that happens, and she's like, "Oh, okay, that's weird. What's up with the other girl?" And she's like, "Oh, they're taking care of her at home." Now, listen, I don't know about you, but if Victor did the right thing, if my daughter was acting like that, you best believe I'm throwing her in somewhere. I'm not keeping her at home with me by myself.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say that that's a victory on the part of the atheist father. I'm not going to say that that's a win. It's just a logical chain of events, religious or not. She's having some kind of a mental break. Bye
Correct.
bye, sweetie. I'll see you on Sunday. That's it.
Exactly.
You
And
know, but
so that happens. They skip to go to the house where Catherine's at. They walk in, it's a mess. The dad's like delirious. The kids are in the kitchen praying, and they're kind of just walking around. All of a sudden, Chris McNeil, who's 90 something years old, leaves Victor, just walks up the stairs, sees the demon girl, Catherine. She's reading the Bible, and then this is when we get
isn't
she
she eating
does.
it? Isn't she eating the Bible?
I think in the trailer they show that. In the
Okay.
movie, I don't think they do.
I don't know why.
I don't know why, but I guess they didn't want to push the boundaries, whatever you want to call it. So, and this is where Chris, she does the cringy line. She's like, "We've met before." It's like, oh my, what is this fucking Obi-Wan versus Darth Vader? I mean,
Right?
you know, ah, we've met before. I'm like, I mean, okay, yeah.
Okay,
And
and
they're going a little bit back and forth. She's like, "Do you want to know where Reagan is?" And she's like, I don't want to listen to what you're saying. And then she's like, "She's in hell with us," because apparently Reagan, after she wrote the book and did all the interviews, she left her mom and just kind of did her own thing. She hasn't talked to her in quite a long time, so she doesn't know where she is. She doesn't know if she's alive or dead. So in this, a lot of people, I might get some hate for this. I don't like the fact of what they did with Ellen Burstyn's character next, but I like the scene itself was kind of cool looking. I just hate that it happened to her because it just felt like you brought her back for nothing. And if you want to explain what happened.
stabs her in the eyes with a cross, dude. Just takes a crucifix that falls off the wall, stabs Chris McNeil in the eyes with it. Now, it's cool in the sense that finally we're getting some action.
Correct.
But the fact that it's happening to Chris McNeil, I get it, man. She signed on for 3 days of shooting. Let's just get her the fuck out of here, right?
Kill
That's
her
what that
off.
felt like. That's what it felt like. Do that to the dad. Do that to the mom. You wanted to have an edgy impact. Do that to literally anybody else. But your main draw, your main selling point of this movie, you just do that to, and it has no bearing on the story whatsoever. Weak, weak, dude. It's like you ran out of scenes to put her in, and you're just like, well, I can't kill her, so she's hospitalized. What?
And what happens to Chris McNeil the rest of the movie? Nothing.
Nah.
She's in the hospital trying to get her eyes fixed. That's it. They Laurie Strode her like in Halloween Kills, where she's in the hospital like the whole movie.
Yeah, yeah. Except it, you saw it coming too. I
Yeah,
thought she was gonna die, but
same.
Chris McNeil, you wrote a book, you studied multiple religions, you literally saw this demon possess your own child. You were apparently trying to break down the door and fight the patriarchy to get in the room where the demon was. You should know, don't go up the stairs by yourself in a haunted house.
Nope. Because in the original Exorcist, what did they do? They strapped Reagan down to the bed with everything possible where she could not move.
Yeah,
Meanwhile, in this movie, this girl is just sitting on the bed like it's just a regular night at home,
she was
and
hanging out.
and then she tries to go up, and she's like, "Come on, it's okay. Let's get back to bed." What? What are you doing? You're
Like
90 years old.
if anyone in the story knows what not to do, it's Chris McNeil. But Universal had to get her in there and get her out.
Listen, I don't care who it is in my family. If I walk up the stairs and they look at me like that, I am like,
I'm
shut the
out.
door.
I'm out.
Shut the door.
Have fun with your patriarchy party in here. I'm going
Yep.
downstairs.
I'm gonna go find two priests and I'm not coming in. So yeah, so she gets stabbed in the eyes. It looks cool, but it's like, it didn't need to happen. And the rest of the movie, she's blind. She's in the hospital trying to get her eyes fixed or whatever. And so we'll kind of skip ahead here. Basically, it comes down to this: there's multiple people trying to put their hand in everything, and the Karen trash can lady went to the Catholic Church and she's like, I got all this evidence because they have to get the exorcism approved. And he's like, yes, we'll do the exorcism. I'm getting it approved. We're good. So then they pretty much figure out, if we can use all of our religious powers, like we're the Avengers or something.
Yeah.
You're a Catholic, you're a Baptist, you're the voodoo lady, I'm an atheist, non-believer, whatever. Let's all get together and we can all take this demon down at once, because there's not just one of them, there's two of them. Maybe it's going to be stronger, I don't know. And so they come up with this idea where, hey, we're just going to put the kids in the room, strap them down to two chairs, bolt them to the floor, and we're just going to yell stuff at them, and hopefully the demon comes out. That's pretty much it.
You're taking what is essentially a story about Catholicism and proceedings of Catholic religion and losing Catholic faith, and then Father Mag. You're taking all of that, and you're basically saying six of one, half a dozen of another. They're all they're all the same. It doesn't matter what religion you believe in, as long as you bound together with the power of friendship, you can defeat a demon. That's what this is saying. It's stupid. There is no exorcism in this movie. The one Catholic character comes in, pussies out, comes back in, tries to do an exorcism. The music is building, the tension is building. Everyone's like, oh, the Catholic is here. Like, oh, okay. The movie's happening now. The Exorcist is happening. Catholic dies right away before anyone else who's been in that room. So, the fuck, man? Like, and you hit the nail on the head with the Avengers reference, man. That's what I was thinking. I think I made that joke to her when we were watching. I was like, this is like the Avengers of religion. We're putting a team together to take down this demon. Oh my god, how ridiculous is that?
And it's just this reeks of Halloween Kills to me. I hate to keep referencing that movie to this movie, but it is the same director and the same writer. So, again, David Gordon Green had this obsession where it's like the town feeds off Michael's energy. It's the community is not the same because of what happened.
We gotta band together.
We got to band together to take them down. And they kind of do the same thing in this movie. And that was a part that everyone hated about Halloween Kills, was the whole community. We need to band together to take them down. It's like, okay, maybe if you're trying to take down like a serial killer, sure. But in this movie, we need to get all of our religions together. I'm not Catholic, but to me, it's kind of a slap in the face, because this is it's not a Catholic movie, but it works so much better when it has to do with Catholicism and the priest and all this. It just, like in the original, when they made it just that one religion, it works so much better than trying to put everything all in one pot to make everybody, I've got the power of this, the power of that. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. And you're spreading yourself too thin on the facts. I mean, William Peter Blatty clearly knew Catholicism. I don't know if he was a Catholic or what, but he clearly did his homework. Correct. He clearly knew exactly how the proceedings go, how people in the church handle this kind of thing, exactly what to say during a real exorcism. So I don't think, or I would never even believe if you told me that the screenwriters of this movie did their homework on the 6 different religions in the room or whatever it was. No, I don't believe that you did that. I think you just wanted to tap in everything to make it look more grand of a threat. You're not adding more conflict. You're not adding more. There's not more on the line. There's just more people in the room. It's not, you're not making a bigger movie. You're just making a more cluttered movie. So, and these characters, half of them in the room, they have no reason to be helping. I mean, the lady, I'm gonna say voodoo. I'm sorry if that's offensive. It's not voodoo. I don't know what it is. They never told me what it was. I'm just gonna call it voodoo. The lady doing that earthly voodoo stuff, what is her attachment to this family? Either one of them. She has no reason to be helping other than she did a B&E in their house. No connection. Like, I don't understand. But she takes like the lead on this, carrying the trash can lady who has a little bit of an arc and has to redeem herself in the eyes of God because she fell out of sisterhood and did an abortion. Like, okay, you got half an arc there. I get it. You got some pull in this. The father who showed up and then showed out, what's his deal? The Baptist preacher who shows up and just spouts off about Jesus. Why is he here? To get with the family, you know? So I don't know, man. It's just so like, again, telling and not showing. They had no meat, but they made it look like they did.
Nope. And so I love this part, you know, and we'll get to the ending right after I say this. So yeah, they're all banding together, we're all trying to do this stuff, and you know, I love how they break. I can't remember which kid it is. I love how they break one of the kids out of the asylum. They're like, "Hey, hope you don't mind. We're taking her. We're getting ready to go do an exorcism of the house." It's like, did no one at the the mental health facility be like, "Hey, you can't do
Things just
that."
happen so other things can happen. It's so ridiculous.
Like, I get you can probably check yourself out whenever, but that's kind of a different circumstance right there. This girl's like gonna kill everybody if we
She's
let
a
her out.
danger to other people. You can't just voluntarily check her out when you're ready.
So yeah, they check her out and they bring her in, and it's just like, I don't know, it's interesting. And so and then we get the scene before we go in. The priest, he's like hyping himself up. He's like, "We're gonna do this," and then he gets there. He's like, "Yeah, the church says I can't do this, so I'm not gonna do it." And that's when he comes back in later on and tries to act like he's, you know,
Going
amazing.
against the church. First of all, what's your character's name? You showed up 10 minutes ago. Who are you? This movie's not
Exactly.
about you like it was with Father Karras. Like, who are you? And why
Exactly.
is going against the church something we should care about? We've seen the church for 5 minutes.
Exactly. It wasn't built up like it was in the first film where it's like, okay, like if he win against this is a big deal.
Yeah.
We barely even seen this guy, just a couple cutaways, and he's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. So anyway, so they nail him down. It's the two girls, and you know, they're trying to do all the stuff. They're shouting this, shouting that, trying to get him to come out. And you know, Victor, he's still not really a believer, and he still kind of doesn't believe. And you know, the girls are looking at him. But I will say this, you know, it's not nearly as effective as the 1973 original, but in this movie, you know, some of the lines and the characters and the design of the girls, you know, it's not the worst, but it's not bad. That, you know, some of the lines they give aren't, you know, terrible. They're, you know, kind of creepy, I guess, but nothing crazy. um and you know, they start doing the exorcism, and we have the Karen lady who took over. She's like, "Hey, I'm gonna lead this because I believe." I believe that we can do it. And she starts leading the exorcism, and it's just like, okay,
And
sure.
it's not even like, I haven't compared the speech in this movie to the speech in the original, but it doesn't seem like an exorcism. It doesn't
No,
seem like anyone's reading the lyrics to an exorcism. It doesn't seem correct until Catholic Father comes in and starts doing what is very clearly professional shit and dies. You know, everything else is just like spouting like, release my child. Like you can't just yell at it. You can't just yell a demon away, man. You have to do an exorcism. What's the name of the movie? So I don't know, man. It seems like the only one who had any effect on the kids, other than the Catholic who was there for 5 seconds, is the lady who was doing that earthly magic stuff with the
Yeah,
fire and the vapor and the smoke and the whatever. She seemed like she was doing something. Man, just make it that movie. Just
yeah,
make that movie about an atheist father who doesn't believe in Catholicism or baptism or whatever, turn towards this worldly religious belief system that's not Catholicism and still gets the same results. Make that movie, man. That'd be interesting. You would have a niche audience. It'd be more compelling and more believable than the
right.
super friends are around here and they're yelling at a demon until he goes away.
Super friends.
It's ridiculous.
I love how they do like the from the original, the classic, like the head turn, but they do it with him when he dies.
Yeah,
I was like, okay. I'm honestly shocked we didn't get the spider walk scene.
I'm not. We didn't get shit. Well, I mean, we got her saying her flicking on the lights and flicking off the lights and flicking on the lights and flicking on the sideways
And,
lights, and that's what we got. And in the original, we got Reagan breaking her back on the bed springs.
yeah,
So
exactly. People got hurt doing those stunts, and these people, they're just cutting the lights on and off.
they're just showing up for a paycheck.
Exactly. So we get down to the end here where both the girls are possessed and they're trying to get exorcised or whatever, and then they do this line, and this is where I kind of maybe you could explain it a little bit better. Maybe I wasn't listening all the way, but they do this whole thing where the demon says you have to pick one girl, you can't have both. And it's like the parents have to choose who's going to live, either one girl or the other girl. And they're both like, we can't choose. Like, that's just not something we could do. And then basically, the one dad is like, I choose Catherine. And it turns out that the one girl, Angela, says the line of like, God played a trick on you. I don't know. Can you kind of explain that a little bit more?
It's not fully fleshed out, but enough pieces are there to where I can come up with my own idea of what would have been a fleshed out idea. So
It's probably better than what they had. So sure.
it's got to be. So the one of the main conflicts that goes back to the beginning is that the father had to choose between the mother and the daughter. He had to choose which one he's going to save. It's revealed that he chose to save the mother. Well, God played a trick on him. The daughter was saved and the mother died. So the demon, I guess the way they wrote it, the demon was kind of mocking him
Mm-hmm.
and mocking God playing a trick on him and saying, okay, well, now you have to choose again. Choose the daughter that you didn't choose the first time, or choose the other one. And I guess as like a test to him to see if he's rebounded and would be like, okay, I choose her this time around. And then the demon would play the trick on him, like, oh, I played a trick on you this time and killed the daughter. That's my idea, but I think
Yeah.
the dad stays strong and doesn't just like snap back and make the wrong choice. And so the demon, the other dad makes the choice, and so the demon fulfills his demon played a trick on you and kills that daughter when it was supposed to be Angela. So I think it was an idea that the demon was trying to play God, and like how God played a trick on him. If he chose the daughter this time, the demon would play a trick on him. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what they were trying to do. I'm okay with it. Saw it coming. I mean, how many times do we have a rug pull like that where it's like you must choose who to save, and then who they choose to save is actually who they chose to die? It's been done, but that was the really that was really the only strategic cunning moment from the demon in this movie. The original one had a lot of strategic. He had a lot of strategic moves, a lot of like thinking 3 steps ahead, very chess player like with the demon the original, like speaking in tongues or reacting to the holy water, trying to fake out Father Karras. He was very smart in the original. This was the only glimpse we got of the demon being smart, or at least being a step ahead. And it didn't play off as well as the original, of course, but But yeah, I got it. That was the demon trying to play a trick on the father, but the father didn't pull the trigger on
Sure. Okay. That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure.
it.
So in the end, Catherine dies and the other girl, Angela, lives. And the other parents, obviously they're upset. And then we get this cutscene where, it looks like Angela is in that tunnel that we saw in the beginning where they were performing the whatever they were performing to try to get in contact with Angela's mom. And she gets drugged down by these demons, which is kind of a cool scene, probably one of the best scenes in the movie. And she gets dragged to hell. It's not really confirmed, like in your face, that she's like dead, can't come back, because I think that's going to be in the sequel. They're going to try to bring her back from hell or something like that, I would imagine. Um, so yeah, I mean, she gets dragged to hell, she dies, and then Angela lives. Anything you want to add on that?
That's it. I mean, that's as flat as it gets. There's not even a tease for the inevitable sequel, so I don't know what they were thinking with that ending. There's just no impact. It's just she died, she lived happily forever after. Here's my speech that you can use in the trailer about what evil is, and that's it. That's
Correct.
it. Yeah, cool glimpses of the demon. Finally, that's always something cool. But we've seen movies like that nowadays, so uh, anyways, before we get to our ratings, two things I want to hark in on. The first one is references to the original, because obviously we can't get away from it. The movie opens up with dogs fighting, very on the nose with the dogs fighting in the original. Um, Obviously, you have the father being a boxer because get it, he boxed, he did the thing, and then the reference to her her exercising herself under the dress. You know what I'm saying? And then
Yeah.
what are the other references? The mental asylum, going to the mental asylum and seeing how people are living. What other references did you pick up on? Easter eggs, stuff like that.
Um, I'm sure there's a couple, but I'll be honest, but most of the ones that you said, I think that's pretty much it. Um, there really wasn't any too many Easter eggs. One thing I will mention is that I tried to stay away from this, and luckily I did, even though it was just a quick scene. I was very curious if Linda Blair was going to be in this movie.
Oh
She
yeah.
was at the very end. She is reunited with her mom. They hug. It's a nice scene. Probably the best scene in the whole movie. Them getting back together for 20 seconds. Uh, but I don't know. I mean, I really didn't catch too many references other than the ones that you mentioned. Honestly,
Did you catch the power of Christ compels you?
did they say that? I was at that point. I was so out of it. I just
In the middle of the exorcism, I was wondering. I was like, are they going to say it? Are they going to say the line? In the middle of the exorcism, Angela, she turns and looks at the Baptist family or someone other than her dad. And she makes a joke. The demon makes a joke in the voice, and she goes, "Does the power of Christ compel you?"
oh god, yeah, I know what you're talking
Oh,
about.
dude,
Yeah, yeah, that was bad.
what a misfire. I mean, you could have. I get what you were doing. You were making a joke out of the most impactful scene in the last one, trying to raise the stakes, trying to show that the old tricks won't work against this, trying to show that the demon is too powerful for that now.
Correct.
I get what you were trying to do, but what it came off as was a tongue-in-cheek joke, like I mentioned earlier in this video, about how you're making a meme out of the old movie. That's all it came off as, because you know what you were doing, man. That
Yeah.
was that was such a self-aware, tongue-in-cheek joke. Ha, does the power of Christ compel you? Such a 2020s humor level, like so not good, man. And what you could have done, you could have had the Catholic father come in and drop the famous line, "The power of Christ compels you," and cut the score out, have that impact, have that punch. And maybe before he finished delivering the line, the demon kills him, something like that. But there's a million other ways you could have incorporated that line in a more impactful and more gravitas inducing way.
I agree. I agree. Stupid.
It is stupid, but
I would have rather had 50 years ago.
50 years ago, the power
Man,
of Christ compels
I'm
you.
so mad we didn't get that.
At this point, the second thing I wanted to talk about was you mentioned earlier in this was controversy around the name. Is it Pazuzu? Pazuzu was never said in the movie.
Right.
Yes, Chris McNeil said the line "We've met before," but here's the problem with that. In the credits of the movie, the demon's name is revealed, and whoever played it, the demon is not Pazuzu. The demon's name is Lamashtu or Lamashtu. I don't know how you pronounce it, but it is a different demon according to the credits. I don't know the difference between Pazuzu and Lamashtu, but it's a different demon. And you have that in the credits, and you're legally required to put that in the credits because someone got paid for that role. So here's the problem. You never say Lamashtu in the movie. You even say, "We've met before." Chris McNeil has never met Lamashtu, which leads me to believe that they wrote this movie without Ellen Burstyn coming back. They wrote this movie to exist without that half-assed cameo. And Universal didn't have enough faith in it on its own that they threw all of this money at Ellen Burstyn, which we know, in order to get that cameo validated. Once Ellen Burstyn signed on and once Linda Blair signed on for their cameos, the script was hastily rewritten just to spread out a little gap in the second act to fit them in.
Correct.
Because otherwise, why do they feel so out of place? I mean, this is very clearly a story about an atheist father and his daughter and his deceased wife and the belief systems, whatever. Take Chris McNeil out of this movie, you still have a structurally sound movie. Which leads me to believe that the script was written where the demon was Lamashtu. It had nothing to do with Pazuzu. And once Universal threw enough money at Ellen Burstyn, it was hastily rewritten, and any mention of the name Lamashtu was cut out of the movie on the cutting room floor. But they left it in the damn credits. So that is a major plot hole to me. It is a huge, huge issue. And it just adds fuel to the fire in my mind that Universal had no faith in this mediocre at best screenplay unless they threw legacy characters into it. So this is a Frankenstein of a movie with corporate interests firsthand. You didn't even try to cover your tracks. Lamashtu was in the credits. You had a different movie before you got greedy with it. If you just had a smaller movie, this atheist father up against Lamashtu, you might have a worthy predecessor of The Exorcist. Maybe you can tie it back later on. But no, you got greedy with it and you didn't cover your tracks well, and it's embarrassing.
I agree 100% with what you said. It's very likely that's probably what happened. Maybe I'm assuming they will expand upon this demon in the second movie because in the original, it's also never mentioned that the demon is Pazuzu. You don't get that until The Exorcist 2. So we will see where that happens. But again, probably a very lazy part on their end.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're like, "Oh, you're actually gonna do the movie? Okay, let's rewrite this."
I was like, oh shit, we got Chris McNeil.
Let's do it. So, all right. So yeah, that is the movie. Let's get into our ratings. Jeff, would you like me to go first, or do you want to go first?
Yeah, you bought the Blu-ray. I'll let you have the honors.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So, I'm going to start out by saying this: is this a bad movie? Yeah. Is it the worst? Do I hate this movie? No, I don't have the energy to hate this movie like I do other movies. I went into this movie thinking it was probably going to be bad. It ended up being bad. It's not scary. You have a legacy character that's there for no reason. I really didn't love any of the actors. I don't love any of the characters. I'm not like on the edge of my seat hoping that one of them lives. I just don't really care.
Right.
The plot really goes nowhere. I don't like the mixing of all the religions. It's just too much. It's like trying to make everybody happy. You please nobody. and you know, you paid all this money for the rights of the Exorcist for and this is the best you could do. I mean, I would have rather seen some over the top, insane gore, crazy stuff that I don't like than just absolutely nothing of what we got. It just was, it's just a movie. It's like, okay, yeah, okay, I guess I'll watch something different now. So as far as my grade, I'm gonna give it a D plus. You know, I was in between that and a C minus, but the more I think about it, you know, they just really dropped the ball with things that they could have done in this movie. It's not the worst movie I've ever seen, but I might rewatch it one more time when the next one comes out, maybe. But I don't know. It was boring. That's the one word I can say. It was boring.
Yeah, I mean, that's cut and dry. That's what it is. And it's so hard to hear that in contrast to the original. I mean, we sung to the high heavens about the original. And just this one was just so boring. Like you said, a D plus is embarrassing. Ugh, so embarrassing, man. But what can you expect? um, all right. Well, I guess I got to give it my four golden rules. Rule number one: don't show me the monster. I'll give you this one. The only time my eyes were glued to the screen is when Catherine was being dragged to hell by the demon, and you had some decent looking creature design with the demon Lamash too,
Right.
with the nose and the old lady saggy boobs or whatever. I wanted to see more of this creature design that you had. I'd like to see concept art of it. I want to see what this demon looks like. The monster is not the kiss. The monster is the demon behind the scenes. You didn't show me an egregious amount of him. So yeah, I'll give you that one. Whatever. uh, Rule number two: be scary at all times, not just when the threat is on screen. This movie's not scary. This movie's not eerie. I said in our original review that the other movie, the demon is so prevalent that he's oozing through the speakers even when there's nothing going on in the scene.
Right.
None of that here, man. There's no nuance, there's no atmosphere. It's just things happening so other things can happen. So, no, you're not scary, and you're especially not scary when nothing's on screen. So, no, don't rely only on jump scares. The one time you are close to anything scary is that quiet jump scare that I talked about in the middle with the demon over the shoulder. So,
Right.
no, you obviously don't get that one. And push the boundaries. The most offensive on this list, whatever the opposite of pushing boundaries is, that's what you did here. You had so many boundaries. And look, I'll give you a little bit of credit because the original pushed all the boundaries. Yeah, you were doomed to never live up to your predecessor from the start, but try. You didn't even try. You pulled all the punches. Any opportunity you had to be edgy, you didn't take it. You played it 2020 cinema safe. You're nothing, man. So overall, this movie has like the nutritional value of a beefy 5 layer burrito. It's like, yeah, I ate, but I'll be hungry again later. So this is
Now my stomach's gonna.
right. It's nothing. I'm not going to buy this on Blu-ray. This is a product. This is not an art. This is not even a motion picture to me. This is just a corporate product. And I don't hate David Gordon Green for this. I'm not going to disrespect David Gordon Green because I think he's got talent, as a director, but he's just being handed these grenades, man, ever since
Yep.
he got lucky in 2018. So I'm not going to disrespect him. And I encourage other people listening to this to not write him off either. But you got one of my four rules. You're in the D range. I'm giving you a D minus, man. I'm never watching this again.
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty much in the same category around that D area.
Yeah.
I bought it on Blu-ray because, well, that's what I do. I buy fucking shit on Blu-ray because
Uh,
that's what I do. I'm a collector. But yeah, that's the movie. Maybe if you did like it, let us know in the comments why. If there's something we missed, let us know. But at the end of the day, it was not that enjoyable. But thank you guys so much for tuning into every horror film. We've got big stuff coming this year. Thank you guys for sticking with us. Going to be a lot of good stuff coming out, so we can't wait to get some of these new movies and review some classics and some other movies you might not know that we look forward to talking to with you.
Let us know if you want us to review something specific. Give us a comment.
Absolutely. So we will see you guys in the next one where horror is forever.
The mummy has now been located.
The living mummy. The living mummy.
Bullets won't stop.
Some creature out of time.
That was horrible. That was horrible.
He's completely out of control.
I saw those bodies.
Is he a man or a monster?
You actually knew a werewolf in a peaceful town where nothing ever happened.
That was horrible. That was horrible.
In the mystical regions of Transylvania.